Quilting on a domestic or home sewing machine is often a lot easier when we have clear lines like this to follow. But there are so many marking tools out there. How do you know which ones won't stain or damage your quilt? Hi, I'm Beth Ann, and over the last few years, I've put more than 20 different quilt marking tools through rigorous side by side testing. And today I'll be sharing with you which tools can give you quick wins, head to head comparisons of the marking options, and why some popular tools might actually leave permanent stains on your quilt. Let's start with our quick wins. Here's a few of my favorite completely safe, no mark marking tools, including some you may already have around the house. First off, painter's tape. It's easily accessible and affordable and does not leave any residue on the quilt. It's handiest for straight lines and grids or anything needing perfect spacing. And it's wonderful for print fabrics. A quick tip: instead of running my stitching line right next to the tape, where I might accidentally stitch into the tape, I prefer to run the edge of my presser foot along the edge of the tape for perfectly straight, evenly spaced lines. And good news, the tape is completely repositionable, so you won't need to go through a whole roll of it. You can keep using pieces of tape until they're no longer sticky enough to stay on the fabric. Next, we have the Hera Marker, a classic tool that's been around forever but may still be new to you. The business end has a very smooth, tapered, bladed edge that can make a firm crease without harming your fabric. I find these creases easier to see in person than on camera, especially on a light fabric like this, but they work well on many fabrics. Don't have a Hera marker lying around? How about a butter knife or a spreader? As long as the edge is smooth and not serrated, we're good to go. Here I'm using a spreader just like I would a Hera marker. You can see the nice, sharp, defined lines with no permanent marks. However, the creases might not show up equally well on all fabrics, and these tools might be a little tricky to use for more complex designs. So, we have a few solid, beginner-friendly, budget-friendly options. But what if you want to mark a curved design? Or you have a mix of both light and dark fabrics? Or even more challenging for quilt marking, print fabrics? Sometimes you'll need more than one type of marker on the same quilt. Here I needed something dark enough to show up on the lighter fabrics, but also something light enough to show up on the darker fabrics. This is where fabric markers, pens, and pencils like these come into play. I'll include some links to some of my favorites in the description box. Here's what I look for in marking tool for quilting. First, I want the marks to be clearly visible so I can see what I'm doing. Next, I want them easy to use. I want the marks to be heat safe in case I need to iron over them. But the marks need also to be easy to remove. I prefer the marks to be water soluble, but I don't mind rubbing in a little gentle detergent if needed. I don't want to see any visible residue, no faint discoloration on the fabric, or halos of residual color. And this is the sneaky danger zone. I don't want to worry about marks reappearing over time, particularly with changes in temperature, humidity, or exposure to sunlight. I learned this the hard way, with blue marks reappearing on a heavily quilted whole cloth quilt. It broke my heart. For my test, I sewed together leftover strips from various projects so I'd have a mix of light and dark in prints, and quilted it onto a layer of cotton batting and backing fabric. I used a fine Sharpie to write the name of each marking tool that I tested next to the appropriate marked line. And the next day, I ironed over the swatches to see if the marks would be heat safe. To help get the removal process started, I brushed over the marks with a wet but not dripping washcloth. Some of the marks are disappearing already. Next, I washed the swatch in my washer with my usual gentle detergent and dried it in the dryer. The swatch came out of the dryer a little wrinkled, so I gave it a quick press before I took the photo. Since it will be hard to see accurate results in the photo, I'll give you a rundown. So, which ones were my favorites? White chalk is a classic. Here's just a few of the styles that I tried. It shows up best on medium to dark fabric. To me, the main drawback of the many pencil style chalk markers is that the lead is very fragile and prone to breaking. This was especially true with the mechanical pencils, which is why I love the refillable white Choco liner and pen style Choco liners from Clover. No need to sharpen, and they're always precise. Both styles performed well, creating clearly defined lines, and I love that the powdered chalk is refillable. White Taylor's chalk makes a wider line and can be a quick and easy option as long as it has no wax or other binders in that might leave a residue, and you really need to watch for this one. White soapstone also worked well, but it tends to form a skin on the surface, so you have to sharpen it or scrape it in order to use it. Washable graphite is another classic option that comes in many forms. Here are just a few. Some of them are darker than others, and some are more fragile than others. I find the key is to mark as lightly as possible, as the darker the marks, the harder they can be to remove. I found that the leads in the mechanical graphite pencils broke so easily that it was frustrating. But sometimes the pinpoint accuracy offered by a thin pencil lead is just what I need. Two other pencil style markers that really impressed me were the Finally fabric marking pencil from Buckleby Tool and Fabric Shop. That one washes out the easiest. And then the slightly darker Roxanne Quilter's Choice Silver water soluble chalk marking pencil. That one also worked really well. Here's the Roxanne Quilter's Choice Silver Water Soluble Chalk Marking Pencil back in action. And as you can see, I switched to the white chalk once I got to the darker fabric. You can see both in the photo. Before we move on to the danger zone, let's take a quick minute to acknowledge why you might get different results than I did. Different results might be caused by how hard you're pressing or how dark your marks are, whether or not you pre-washed your fabrics to remove any sizing or finishes, what kind of chemicals might be in your water, what kind of laundry detergent you're using, and what the climate is like where you live. Is it hot, cold, humid, dry, or changing all the time? Now we're in the danger zone. I strongly recommend avoiding colored chalks as they can leave permanent stains, and yes, I know this from firsthand experience. I'd also avoid colored, water-soluble pencils and markers. I've had varying levels of difficulty removing those marks. And sometimes there's a residue that seems to be in the batting, and you don't realize it's there until it comes back later. I also recommend caution with air or heat erasable markers. Here are just a few of the ones I tried. In my testing, some left a subtle residue on the fabric right away. I also observed halos of color that reappeared as stains days, weeks, or sometimes months later. I may still use them for marking cutting lines or marks that will be hidden in a seam allowance, but not on the front of a quilt. Bottom line, if you've had success with tools that I don't recommend, feel free to keep using whatever works for you. But I strongly recommend you always test any marking tool before using it, no matter who recommended it, even me. What marking tools work or don't work for you? Please leave a note in the comments. I'd love to hear about your experiences. And happy quilting!